Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to be talking how frequent should you train each muscle, right? How frequent should you go to the gym, right? Get a pump, get a hard workout in, right? And a lot of you probably think, well, shouldn't the more frequent you go to the gym increase the results you're getting, right? The more hard work you're putting in each week, shouldn't that provide some sort of benefit? Well, you know what? I think the simple answer to that is yes, it should, but there are some caveats, there are some things we gotta look out for. So I think a better way to answer this question would be to split it up into two separate questions, right? So how would a higher training frequency impact your strength, and how would it impact your muscle growth? And I think doing that, it's gonna allow us to answer that question better depending on what your goal is. So let's go ahead and look at how would a higher training frequency impact your strengths. So if your primary concern is strength, right, you're probably interested in powerlifting. So you care about that squat, that bench, that deadlift. So how could training each of these movements within a week impact our strength with these lifts? And I think the best way to answer that question is by looking at a meta-analysis done by Greg Nuckols. So in this analysis, he looked at a total of 13 studies with a total of 328 subjects included, and in each study examined the effects of training frequency with volume and intensity match per week were analyzed. Now, across most of the studies, he found that higher frequencies led to 20 to 23% faster strength gains, and he also found that there was a fairly linear increase in the benefits of increased frequency. So you're probably wondering, how does a higher training frequency lead to faster strength gains? And I think the number one reason being that more days you can train each muscle on, the better quality of sets you'll have. So let me give you an example. So let's say you do a total of 9 sets of squats within a given training week. So imagine having to do all 9 sets of squats in one day, right? That's probably gonna kill you. If I did that, that'd probably kill me. Now imagine splitting that up across 3 separate days. So now you've got 3 sets of squats on each given day. Those 3 sets are gonna be a lot better in each of those days. So the total of those 3 sets will be way better than doing all 9 of those sets in one single day. And that's probably the main reason why higher frequencies lead to faster strength results. Now the second reason being, there's probably more motor learning. So we know that in order to get better at these movements, we have to do it more often. So practicing them more often within a given training week probably leads to better strength gains as a result of doing each movement more frequently. And the final reason probably being that there's more hypertrophy involved with higher frequencies. And what I mean by that is the volume was matched across all different studies analyzed in this meta-analysis done by Greg Nuckols. But what they didn't account for was that by doing these movements, so the squat, bench, and deadlift more often within the given training week, there was more hypertrophy because there was more warm-up sets involved since there was more days of training in each week. So because of that, there's probably some effects of hypertrophy involved that led to bigger strength gains. So one interesting thing to take note of was that in this meta-analysis, it was shown that higher training frequencies actually benefited the upper body more than it did the lower body. So that's something to think about next time you decide to increase frequency. Maybe you want to begin by increasing the frequency of how often you bench. And the most likely reason why higher training frequencies impacted upper body strength more was probably because upper body muscles tend to recover a bit faster than lower body muscles. So given that information, let me show you how now you can take that information and go ahead and apply it to your training. So let's say that right now you train bench twice a week and you spread a total of 10 sets per week on each of those days. So that's 5 sets of bench per day. Now because of the information you heard in this video, you decide you want to increase frequency to 3 times of benching per week. So to set that up, just pick a day where you want to add the bench press to, and now allocate those 10 sets you were doing to 3 days now instead of just 2. Don't increase sets on each of those days until a few weeks of training on this new frequency. And if you find that you're recovering and making progress well and nothing's hurting, then go ahead and add an increased volume on each of those days, which can result in greater muscular strength, as increased volume may be the primary driver of increased strength when using greater frequencies, as shown in a meta-analysis done by Gurgic. So I think that wraps up the strength topic rather nicely. So let's go ahead and move on to muscle growth. So how does a higher training frequency impact muscle growth, right? So how can it take you from being just Axel to Axwell? So let's think about this. Most of you are probably on a training frequency of training each muscle 1 time per week or maybe 2 times per week. And you're probably thinking of switching to something maybe like a training frequency of 3 times per week or even 4 times per week. So something like a 4-day full body split or maybe even a 6-day upper lower split. So could that potentially be a better training split? Well, let's first look at the comparison of just training each muscle 1 time per week versus 2 times per week, because I think that's the easiest question to answer here. And the simpler answer is yes, training each muscle 2 times per week is superior to training each muscle 1 time per week. And that's clearly shown in a meta-analysis done by Schoenfeld and colleagues, in which they found that in 10 different studies that were analyzed, that 2 times per week frequency was superior to a 1 time per week frequency, even when volume was matched. So the real question here is, how does a 3 times per week frequency or even a 4 times per week muscle frequency compare to the rest of the frequencies? So to answer that question, let's take a look at another meta-analysis done by Greg Nuckols, in which he analyzed 13 studies comprised of a total of 305 subjects, and where they compared frequencies with, again, the volume being matched. So in one direct comparison he made, he compared the frequency of training each muscle 1 to 2 times a week versus training each muscle 3 or more times per week. And in that comparison, he found that the higher frequency group experienced significantly faster hypertrophy. And one interesting thing to note is that there seems to be a linear relationship between frequency and volume, in which each additional day of frequency led to an additional 22% more hypertrophy on average. So now you're probably asking yourself, how does a higher frequency lead to more muscle growth? Well, the primary reason being that probably training each muscle more often throughout the week leads to muscle protein synthesis being stimulated more. And then another reason being that the quality of sets again is greater on a higher frequency program, because what happens if you have so much volume programmed on one given day, you might save energy on the first initial sets so that you have more energy to use on the later sets. Or another example being is that you might go all out on those first few sets, and on the remaining sets the quality drops significantly because you don't have as much energy. So I think we covered that pretty well now. So let's talk about how we can apply this information to your training program through an example. So first, if you're only training each muscle 1 time per week, go ahead and change your split to something where you can train each muscle twice a week. Keep the total sets you were doing the same, and just now spread it across the added days. Only after training for a few weeks at this new frequency should you increase volume, as long as you're recovering well. And if you already have been training each muscle twice a week or even 3 times a week, you could try increasing frequency initially to just one body part that you may be lagging in at first. And again, keep volume the same and just spread it across the added days. Now, if progress isn't hindered by this change and you're recovering well and progressing still, now try bumping up the volume on each of those days and see how that impacts muscle growth for the given lagging body part. And if growth is going well and you are managing fatigue well, you know that you probably made the right change. And I would recommend continue using frequency as a tool that allows you to manage your volume across the training week more effectively, being that higher frequencies allow you to spread volume more evenly across the week. That's going to allow you to reach higher levels of training volumes that you might not have been able to do before on lower frequency programs. And if you're unsure how much volume you should be doing or what range you might fall in, go ahead and check out my volume video that I did a while back, and that will answer any questions you might have regarding volume. And I think it's safe to say that that wraps up the video rather nicely, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys can take something from this video and apply it to your training so that you can receive even better results. And if you guys did enjoy this video or have any questions or suggestions on what you want to see next, let me know down below in the comments. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with anyone you feel will greatly benefit from receiving this information. And once again, thanks everyone so much for tuning in. And until next time, see you later.